In the cinematic sea of prequels, sequels, reboots, and reimaginings, the Movie Retakes podcast considers the merits and desires for Hollywood's new takes on our beloved movie classics. Brothers Matt and Chris Sully examine the latest retake franchises, pitch their own original retake visions, and share their love for the movies that made them. This is Big Sully.
And this is Matt. Keep those sharp objects away from me, Sully. It is a frightening episode of Movie Retakes, because today we are covering the Saw franchise.
I think we're going to be here for a while, see?
The newspapers started calling him the Jigsaw Killer. Actually, technically speaking, he's not really a murderer. He never killed anyone. He finds ways for his victims to kill themselves.
Yikes.
Yes. That's a word for it.
The never-ending Saw franchise. They wanted to say there was a final chapter. There wasn't. They just came back and did some more, and now they're doing some more again, which is good for us, because that's the kind of thing we cover here on Movie Retakes. If you haven't listened to an episode before, welcome. This show is about movies that are getting the old rework. As mentioned in the opening there, some sort of reimagining or reboot is happening to this particular franchise. And if you have been under a rock, then there is a new Saw coming out under the name Spiral. And we'll be talking all about the Saw franchise and Spiral today on the program. Thanks for joining us. If you haven't followed us on Twitter and Twitch and YouTube and Instagram, please do that now. And join us every Wednesday on Twitch, where we do a live podcast episode, a little bit of different format, but the big thing there is we get to play live trivia with everybody, which is a ton of fun. And we've been doing that for quite a while now, and everybody has a great time. It's free to play. It's for fun. You get some points, and you can win some stickers, too, which is pretty exciting. So join us, find us there under the name Movie Retakes, and join us Wednesday nights, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of fun with that trivia. We've had topics like Sandra Bullock. Shout out to Sandra Bullock. I got the first one in on this episode. Horror. What else do we do? Paul Rudd.
We did do a Paul Rudd.
Whole Paul Rudd one.
Yep.
That's been a lot of fun. Yeah, and shout out to QuizKit, probably one of the best plugins I've ever seen for anything done on Twitch. Who's made that possible? Absolutely free of charge, isn't it? Isn't it free? I think it's free.
Yeah.
We've really enjoyed using that, and those guys have done a great job on making a fun trivia experience.
Yeah, it's pretty seamless, and the fact that so many people can come in and play makes it really nice for the audience to get to interact a little bit more than you even normally can do through Twitch. What are the big questions for today, brother?
Oh, I love this part. I don't read these in advance, but we've got some great content coming up for you in the podcast today, and we're going to answer 3 important questions, at least, probably a lot more. From which comedy film did Saw filmmakers borrow sets? What do the Saw and Police Academy franchises have in common? I'm going to guess early in the number of films on this one. I could be wrong. And then what actors screamed their way into 2 Saw movies? I'm really interested to find that one out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to answer all those questions throughout the episode, and we've got tons of other stuff for you as well. But first, we want to cover what you're watching.
Yeah, for me, I am all over the board these days. We're in the middle of a new fall TV season, but it doesn't feel like it because I'm really not watching too many new shows. I'm usually a sucker for all the new fall TV. I did watch the series finale of Superstore, R.I.P. I love that show. It was so good. I really hope we get more from those actors and actresses and content creators because that show was just fantastic. It should not have been shut down. It should still be going. Debris, great sci-fi flick. I've talked about it already. Sci-fi show, a la Fringe and X-Files. It's actually made by the same creators of Fringe. Love it. Young Rock is a great comedy on NBC about Rock and his presidential run in the 2030s, which I still predict is a real thing. I've been saying it for years. He will be president. I watched this movie I highly recommend called Spontaneous, available on Hulu right now. I talked about it on our live the other night. The premise, real simple. High school students, all seniors, are just spontaneously combusting in classrooms and around the school. Like, just literally just pop, they're done. They call it a comedy horror. What do we call them? Homedy? A homedy.
It's called it.
There's a little comedy to it, but it's mostly a love story mixed into this high school atmosphere, and it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. And then Thunder Force on Netflix with Melissa McCarthy. It was all right. If we go to rate this one, I'm going to rate it pretty low, but I'll wait till brother and I both get to see it fully and talk about it.
I don't know that I'm going to watch it, my friend.
Okay, well then I'll rate it. I'll give it a 2.
Okay.
2.5, maybe. I'm not going to watch it again. There was a couple really funny moments from Melissa McCarthy in there that made it worth watching once.
Yeah.
Especially shout out to Jodie Foster and the Tay in the wind.
Tay in the wind.
She nailed that part. It was really good. Podcasts I listen to. I'm finally getting back to podcasts now that I'm out running and walking again. Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum is one of my favorite new podcasts. He had guest Zachary Levi on recently. I love Zachary Levi. Just an excellent guy. He talks about struggling with mental health, which is something a lot of us in the world are going through during all this COVID crap. I highly recommend you listen to that. And then ID10T, that's Chris Hardwick, had on Alan Tudyk. I love Alan Tudyk. I cast him in my last film that we did here on the show for what did we do last?
The Running Man?
It wasn't Goonies. The Running Man. I had him in there. And then games. I'm streaming all the time on Twitch, playing Fall Guys and Rocket League, and now I'm really getting in more and more to Call of Duty Warzone, which is a free game that you can play. And there's a big event coming next week on Wednesday that I'll be doing before we have our live. A big in-game event where they're going to blow up the map, and we're getting a new map.
Cool.
So I'm really excited about that.
That is exciting. I haven't been playing a bunch of games. We did get like a Marvel Lego Heroes game for the Xbox, so Isabel and I have been playing that here and there.
I love the Lego games.
Yeah, they're a ton of fun. They're equally frustrating and fun. But I'll keep going back to those because just getting to go around the map and just smash pretty much every object on there and watching it explode, that's all the fun I really need. For stuff we've been watching, we've been trying to get through most of the Oscar films before the awards are happening, and recently we watched Minari, which can't recommend enough. It was fantastic with Stephen Yeun. A fantastic cast, some of the best acting I have seen in a long, long time. And it's a universal family story that I think everyone can enjoy. Finally got around to something that's been on my list for a while, Taiko Waititi's Hunt for the Wilder People, which was also very entertaining. I love not knowing anything about a movie and going into it and then just being so pleasantly surprised. And this was one of those. I didn't know anything about it and really, really enjoyed it. We also watched the Tina Turner documentary, Tina, which was quite good. And, a lot of times they do these documentaries. We not too long ago, we watched the Bee Gees documentary, which was quite good as well. Sad story. I mean, this man, I almost cried the other day. It was Siblings Day, and we're celebrating, our brotherhood and stuff, and he's lost 3 of his brothers. And it's just heartbreaking. I can't imagine, and I don't want to. And, that's the normal sort of thing with these documentaries. They're either covering people when they're on their last leg or that leg's gone. And this was Tina sort of getting ahead of that in a way, like basically saying, I'm probably not going to be around too much longer. I'm definitely not going to be in the spotlight. And so I'm going to go ahead and celebrate myself a little bit. And it was nice. We still get, obviously, all the dramatic stuff from her past and everything, but I'm a big fan of hers and always have been, and it was just kind of nice to relive her history and stuff. So that's good. I recommend that one, too. And then last night, watched Love and Monsters, brand new to Netflix. Been wanting to watch this one for a while, and was also pleasantly surprised. Just a surprisingly, wholesome family tale, really, that I think anybody could watch. It's despite the the monsters everywhere, it's not gruesome, and it's kind of a love story and adventure story, and I think this is pretty accessible to a lot of folks. The special effects are pretty amazing.
I was tempted a second ago, but I didn't want to interrupt you. You were talking about Tina Turner, and you said, yeah, for people who lost on their last leg or lost that one, I almost interjected and went, and that's a perfect segue into Saw. But you had a momentum going. I didn't want to kill it.
No, you're right, though. That's, I think there's quite a few things lost throughout the Saw franchise. A foot is the least of your worries.
God, yeah, that was G-rated by comparison.
Oh, boy. But you're right. And we have a ton of Saw to cover because there's an infinite number of films. So if we're going to get there, we got to get going. First, I do have a behind-the-scenes segment. This is entitled Black Horror Cinema. Aside from blaxploitation movies of the 70s like Blackula and one-offs like Vampire in Brooklyn, black horror has been largely ignored at the box office, and the coveted horror franchise has been elusive. Candyman featured a large black cast and killer, but production of the films were still white dominant. The Scary Movie franchise were initially written, directed, and produced by the Wayans, only to leave the franchise after a falling out with the studio. The other contenders have been Spike Lee's Tales from the Hood, which only the first was released at theaters, and Blade, which despite Wesley and John Divins as producers, are still not predominantly black-made films, while Chris Rock is producing the upcoming Spiral, which may very well reinvigorate the Saw franchise with Rock at the helm. Twisted Pictures is still the main production company behind it. This is where Jordan Peele and Monkey Paw Productions comes in to shake things up. Producers of recent horror films Get Out and Us, and the series Lovecraft Country, they seem to have their sights on rekindling the flames of old franchise terrors, namely Candyman and The People Under the Stairs. Peele's films boast black ensemble casting and direction, and have been successful at the box office in both reviews and ticket sales. While Monkey Paw Productions is not a purely black production company, Peele is CEO, while Wynn Rosenfeld and Ian Cooper, both white, are president and creative director respectively. The feeling is that black horror films may have found some footing in the industry. The average horror film goer audience is 16% black. For Peele's debut, it was 39%. Us followed up with 30%. Very strong numbers. Black horror is on the rise, and with numbers like these, that's frighteningly good news.
Yeah, I actually, while putting together my pitch for this one, that was a name that came up for me. I'm interested to see if that's who you picked as your director. But I love what Peele's done. I love his movies. And it's crazy to think that a guy with that comedy background who's so funny on Key and Peele could make these masterpieces. I mean, they're really good films. And I hope to see a lot more from him. He actually had a good episode on ID10T with Chris Hardwick, talking about this before he even made Get Out. If anybody has a chance, you want to listen to another podcast, check that episode out. It's really good.
Well, it's one of these things, like, if you're going to... Well, you want to get into a horror franchise like that. These things are, and Saw is the perfect example of, you can go in with a really low budget and still have a huge box office hit, like tons of sales, because people's demands for quality aren't as high. They're willing to shell out cash for this. If you can get that franchise, then you can pretty much guarantee some dollars year after year. But that's the thing, is like, we're seeing with Jordan Peele is that he's recognizing that and trying to get some space in the industry, and meet a demographic that maybe wasn't, they were supportive of this particular genre, but there's room to grow, I think. If you can grab that, then obviously that's going to be beneficial for a lot of people.
Smart man.
Yep, he is. And yeah, I agree. The movies he's doing are quite good. I'm hoping the Candyman's going to be good. And People Under the Stairs, I know very little about it yet, but I'm sure he'll do something wonderful with it.
I just hope he can pause in the middle of these to do a sequel to Keanu, because I freaking love that movie.
Yeah, it's funny that the name. I got to get a cat named Keanu. All right, let's get started with Saw.
Hello, Amanda. You don't know me, but I know you.
Two strangers awaken in a room with no recollection of how they got there and soon discover they're pawns in a deadly game perpetrated by a notorious serial killer. This stars Carrie Elwes, Lee Whannell, Danny Glover, Ken Leung, Dina Meyer, Michael Emerson, and Tobin Bell. Directed by James Wan, you know this guy. He directed Insidious 1 and 2, The Conjuring 1 and 2, Furious 7, and Aquaman 1, and the upcoming Aquaman 2 as well. The writers here were Lee Whannell. He wrote the first 3 Saws. He also wrote the Insidious franchise, and stars in there as well. Which it took me forever to recognize him. I was just like, "That's not him, is it?" But that's him, with glasses, or I forget I think his name is Glasses or something in there. But
oh, nice.
Anyway, The Mule. He also wrote Upgrade, which I think you saw that one, and then the new Invisible Man as well. The first Saw came out in 2004. Around this time, we had Spider-Man 2 at the box office, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and Shrek 2 was the leader for box office take. This was a huge success on a $1.2 million budget, which that's what I'd spend on craft services. They got $103 million return. So, my God. That is impressive. Not highly rated, but of the franchise, it's tops 49% on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you want to talk about these as we go, or wait until the end and then just talk about the whole series?
I think this one warrants a discussion of its own, and then maybe the rest can be kind of merged together into one overall discussion. Like, I was reluctant to go see this. As we've talked about before, I'm not the biggest horror movie fan, and this and Hostel entered in this just gruesome stuff that I had not seen before in movies, especially featured like this. They were one-off small parts in other films, but now it's just a big, big part of it. And I honestly did not want to like it. But ended up enjoying the film. No spoilers here, or spoiler alert, because it's been out for long enough we can talk about it openly. The big twist at the end. Holy crap. Did not see that coming at all. Love that he was in the room the whole time. Absolutely nuts. Which, yeah, he had to be severely drugged. I hadn't seen this in so long. I was like, wait, how did he do that the whole time? He had to have been under something. Yeah, he was. And then I didn't think about it until after getting everything ready today, but what happened to Carrie Elwes? So we watched him walk out of there, and I just assumed dude got killed, but then as we get later on into it, we find out he didn't. I really liked it, but it's not one I would go back and watch regularly. I was reluctant to go back and rewatch the series, just like I was reluctant to watch it the first time. And believe it or not, I didn't share this with you. I watched all but 2 of the films over the last week and a half, and I am not right. I'm going to need some counseling after this. These movies are rough, man. Yeah. This one was, like I joked earlier, this one was the simplest. This was the least disturbing of the films, I think, because it relied more on the story and the back story of the characters than it did on the torture porn or whatever you want to call it. But I like the film. I like Carrie Elwes. I'd like to see him in more stuff. That was a good movie.
Do you have a star rating for that then?
3.5.
Okay.
I think. I think the only thing holding these movies back was there was some really bad acting from a few people. Other than that, the production quality we were okay with. Like you said, we accept low quality. The story was good. I think the story throughout all the Saw films is fantastic. We'll talk about that more in a second. But some of the acting was just... That's the only reason it's not higher.
Yeah, that's my main complaint, actually, about Saw, is that no one really did a great performance. Even Danny Glover. It just felt very phoned in, and when we get to the trivia, you'll kind of discover why. This was filmed very quickly. There was not a lot of rehearsal, and this is basically just, they set up the camera and caught the first lines of everybody said. So that's why that this feels very unrehearsed, is because it is.
But Clint Eastwood does that and makes great movies.
Yeah, I guess. but he needs an editor. And you notice that I probably going to come in under that, maybe like 2.5, 3 stars, because I'm not going to rewatch this again. Like, this was I remember enjoying it when it came out, but it's very dated. It doesn't hold up all that well. The acting is noticeably poor, and none of this is novel anymore. Like the whole twist ending and everything. We've been we're jaded to that sort of thing now, where it's not as shocking anymore. And the gore itself isn't shocking anymore. There's been so many of the follow-ups and stuff too, and Hostel and all these other things, that you're right, this is the tamest. Even when he cuts off his own leg, they show some,
yeah,
but they could have taken it farther and they didn't. I'm sure that had to do with budget. From a direction standpoint, I'm judging it really harshly because I love James Wan and I've seen where he's gone. And honestly, I think it's still directed well. I think a lot of the stuff that I don't like is more in the editing, the style and stuff they gave it afterward. And I'm sure he would probably maybe want to do something a little bit different. But anyway, overall, if you are going to watch the Saw series, do watch. This is a one-watch sort of thing. Just even for the experience of seeing what it was like for the old timers when we had our horror films come out in 2004, But I don't think I'll even watch this one again. I think I know everything I need to know. All right, that moves us on to Saw 2, Electric Boogaloo. Detective and his team must rescue 8 people trapped in a factory by the twisted serial killer known as Jigsaw. Tobin Bell returns. Now we get Shawnee Smith, Donnie Wahlberg, Eric Knudsen, and Dina Meyer. Although Shawnee was in the first one, I think, too, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now we do change directors here. We go over to Darren Lynn Bozeman, who ends up doing this one as well as the third and fourth one. He also has directed Mother's Day, Death of Me, and he will be returning for Spiral, which is interesting.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of the things that seems to be happening throughout the series, is there always seems to be some kind of overlap with either writers or directors or something. They seem to want to try and keep somebody in the loop that knows what's going on, even though the audience does. I got so lost. I've watched like 2 different things on how all this ties together, and I'm still confused.
Yeah.
Writer, we still have Lee. Darren, the director, joins on this one as well. Darren has also written or worked on 11-11-11 and The Barons, a couple other movies he directed as well. This came out a year later in 2005. Still very low budget. They only gave him $3 more million. That's so ridiculous to say something like that. Just $3 more million. But these guys did huge with it. $147 million at the box office. Jeez. So good for you. Only a slight dip in the rating, 36% in Rotten Tomatoes. And this is where things change in the franchise. This starts to get closer into the more gruesome. And even this one's sort of tame by comparison, where they go into the later stuff. We still get the games and stuff, but this is where it starts with the games. The other one's more like 2 dudes in a room solving puzzles. It's like an escape room sort of thing, really. Where these other ones start to get into more puzzle sort of things or games or whatever, where they have to solve different things to move around the house. And yeah, we'll keep on cruising with the movie descriptions and all that, and then we can talk about the series as a whole when we get there. Saw 3, again, this is a year later, 2006. We've got Darren again as director. We've got Lee as the writer. Now we've got Tobin and Shawnee return. Now we've got Angus McFadden, Bahar Sumik, and Donnie Wahlberg, and Dina Meyer returns as well. This one, they finally gave them a few dollars here, $10 million budgets, and we're going to see pretty much that's where they hover for most of the series, and did mega sweet, $164 million. This is the exact thing that you hope for in your movies. You can toss $10 million at something and get 150 back. That's an investment. Not so well rated, 28%. Big dip there.
I promise that my work will continue. That I have ensured. By hearing this tape, some will assume that this is over, but I am still among you. You think it's over just because I am dead. It's not over. The games have just begun.
Moving on to Saw 4, despite Jigsaw's death, spoiler alert, and in order to save the lives of two of his colleagues, Lieutenant Rigg is forced to take part in a new game which promises to test him to the limit. Take it to the limit. This has got Costas Mandalore, Scott Patterson, Betsy Russell, Lyric Bent, and Athena Karkanis. Bozeman's here. Now we get some new writers, however. Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, a writing team, the same guys who brought us Feast 1, 2, and 3, as well as The Collector and The Neighbor, and they're going to stay with us for the next 3 Saw films. This was in 2007, and this is a trend. This has actually started to be part of their advertisements, is that they always bring it out every year, annually, before Halloween. That was their placement in the theater.
Perfect.
And they know they're going to get the audience. Again, a $10 million budget, $139 million on a return, so it didn't matter that people didn't like the last one. They came back anyway. And they sure didn't like this one. 19% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oof.
Don't worry, it gets worse. Saw 5, following Jigsaw's grisly demise. Mark Hoffman is commended as a hero, but Agent Strom is suspicious and delves into Hoffman's past. Meanwhile, another group of people are put through a series of gruesome tests. Sound familiar? Tobin Bell's here, Costas Mandalore, Scott Patterson, Betsy Russell, Julie Benz, Mark Ralston. Some people survived. Directed by David Hackle, who also did Into the Grizzly Maze, Life on the Line, and Daughter of the Wolf. Our writers, Melton and Dunstan team, is here. This is 2008. $10.8 million budget, a slight increase, and $113 million return. Not as much as before, but still very, very solid. 13% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oof.
Nobody liked it. And nobody cares. They're still throwing money at it. And that's where Saw 6 comes in. Agent Strom is dead, and FBI agent Erickson draws nearer to Hoffman. Meanwhile, a pair of insurance executives find themselves in another game set by Jigsaw. We've got Tobin, Costas, Mark Rolston joins us, Betsy Russell, Shawnee Smith returns, spoiler, Peter Outerbridge, Athena Karkanis, and Samantha Lamole. And you're going to find that there's characters that have long been dead, and yet they're still in the series, and that's how this thing works. This is directed by Kevin Grudert, who had also done Jezebel, Visions, and Jackals. Writing team Melton and Dunstan are here. 2009, 1 year later. This one, they gave them an $11 million budget, and they took a dip at the box office. People were learning lessons. Only $68 million here. But higher rated. Fewer people showed up, but the people that did liked it more at 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. Then we get Saw 7, a.k.a. Saw the Final Chapter. That's a lie. And a.k.a. Saw 3D. That third dimension is horrifying. As a deadly battle rages over Jigsaw's brutal legacy, a group of Jigsaw survivors gathers to seek the support of self-help guru and fellow survivor Bobby Dagan, a man whose own dark secrets unleash a new wave of terror. Tobin's here, Costas is here, Betsy's here, Carrie Elwes returns, ? Sean Patrick Flannery joins as well, Kevin Grudert stays on as director. The old Melton Dunstan combo is here, and it's 2010 with a $20 million budget. They decided to throw some money at that one, and it's all because of the 3D filming, which adding that, and it's only $10 million more to your budget, that's actually pretty good. The numbers go up a little bit, $136 million at the box office. I think this is when people started getting into the 3D and probably were excited for that. But they weren't excited about the outcome. 10% on Rotten Tomatoes. Unliked. And that was the end. Or was it? 7 years later, we get Saw 8, a.k.a. Jigsaw. Bodies are turning up around the city, each having met a uniquely gruesome demise. As the investigation proceeds, evidence points to one suspect, John Kramer, the man known as Jigsaw, who has been dead for over 10 years. Doesn't matter. Matt Passmore is in this. Tobin Bell, of course, returns. Callum Keith Rennie, Hannah Emily Anderson, and Clay Bennett. Directed by the Spierig brothers, Michael and Peter, who have also done Undead, Daybreakers, Predestination, and Winchester. You probably heard of a couple of those. The writers here have changed. It's Josh Stolberg, who worked on Good Luck Chuck, Sorority Row, Conception, and the upcoming Spiral, as well as Pete Goldfinger, who worked on some television and Sorority Row and Spiral with Stolberg. So they're our writer team for the upcoming film, which we'll find some of this in the trivia as well, but essentially there was a lot of material left over that didn't get used, and so they I think we're gonna have pretty much what they wrote before. They've just been hanging on to it for a while, maybe tweaked it a little bit.
It's an easy gig to get paid for. That
yeah,
one.
That's nice, isn't it? This was in 2017, not too long ago. A familiar budget of $10 million and got $103 million at the box office. So proved that this baby's still got legs. And liked a little bit more at 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, that actually does bring us to the end of the Saw franchise. I'm sure there's a cartoon in there that I was not aware of, and a whole
series,
comic set, and
a podcast,
the home game. Everybody gets a reverse bear trap
the
on
home game.
On the head. All right. So, what are your thoughts? You don't have to give a star rating for each of these. I think we could probably
I'm not going to
figure that out later.
I think 2 through 6 are basically just one long movie. And then I did not see all of Jigsaw. I started it, but I didn't finish it. I'm going to go back and finish it. 2 through 6 are the same freaking movie where you just move the pieces around for each film a little bit. That's all it is. It stays one story. It goes on forever. Now, the saving grace of the whole thing is that story, if you can follow it, it's intricate, but it's really cool the way they did it. There's stuff happening where you're going back and learning about Jigsaw and how he got to be the way he was. But then there's this interweaving of stories that are running simultaneously and bringing in different characters as they test different people. And the first time I saw, I think it was 3 or 4, that's when I really started going, wow, the writing on this, they must have like a really detailed whiteboard somewhere where they're showing the timelines on this, like Back to the Future, like, hey, here's this timeline, here's this timeline. We got to loop all these together. It's brought down, however, again, by horrific acting. The guy who played Costas Mandylor, who played Mark Hoffman, is the luckiest son of a bitch in all of movies because they kept bringing him back, and he just delivered the same horrible, underperformed acting, the worst acting I think I've ever seen in films.
Yeah.
I cringed every time this guy was on screen. It's like, I could have done better. And I know I'm a horrible actor. Like, I can't stand watching him. I'm sorry. I'm normally not critical, but this guy just pissed me off.
No. Didn't see it happening like this. Why the hell do we still do it? It's our nature to save it. It's what we do. Right. Cherish your life.
Shawnee Smith as Amanda Young was pretty good. Tobin Bell as Jigsaw does his part. And then you bring in a few. I thought Donnie Wahlberg was okay. He's never been great in anything. I thought he was okay. Anyway, same story over and over and over again, but I kept watching them as they would come out because I was intrigued to see what they would do. But I watched it all with my hands over my face because I don't like that just let's take it to the next level. Let's see the bone pop out. Let's see somebody explode. We didn't need the close-up of that stuff to tell this story. I think it was just, it's too gruesome, man, for me. Hostel's the same way. Like there's something there, but I don't know that we need to make it torture porn. Imply it, don't show it, is my theory. But
yeah, because for me, well, I think for everybody, it's just whether or not that's what you came for. You know what you're going to get at some point, but how much do you enjoy that? For me, I don't like that sort of thing because I want story over blood. I'm fine with
and I'd like to sleep.
gruesome killings if you want to explode people's heads and rip off their limbs, but at least have a great story to go along with it, or a good script and good acting and stuff. It's lacking pretty much in everything, and it just becomes a series that is trying to top the last one and how gruesome it can be, and that's not my bag. Like, I'm not into that. What we discovered the other day is called body horror, where they're basically doing horrific things to the human body. I don't like that, because I got one of those, and I don't like to imagine horrible things happening to me, which is strange because I can watch a zombie film where their zombies are biting into people, and it doesn't bother me as much. What were you going to say?
This is too real.
Yeah.
I felt things in parts of my body I didn't know I could have feelings in while watching these films. Like, like that. Where'd that hurt? Why'd that hurt down there? That's weird.
Yeah.
Just watching the movie. Yeah. It's too real. It's just like the same reason I hate Paranormal Activity, because like it's just so vulnerable when you sleep. And there's this thing in the room with you messing with you. Well, this could happen. And you know what scares me? I always say this about like police procedurals. Why are we putting this out there in the world? Somebody is going to replicate this crap. They're going to watch it and go, oh, hey, I'll do that in real life and make the headlines. It's just a matter of time before it happens.
Yeah. So I have to admit that I cheated and did the Cliff's Notes versions of this to get through the series.
That was a smart play.
Unfortunately, the videos I watched to catch me up on the summary of a lot of these made sure to include all the gruesome stuff in there. So I did watch pretty much all of that, although it's like a sped up version. So yeah, I retained it all. But my main focus was because you had always talked about how there's a bigger story here, how things tie together, and I did watch multiple times and read multiple times trying to understand who became an apprentice when.
Yeah.
What their motivation was, what they did to mess up or whatever that then resulted in their own death. And it still doesn't make sense to me. I can't get behind, not necessarily when and who and what and all that, but the concept of Jigsaw's plan actually achieving anything where people do feel appreciative and want to help him do this to more people. Because
that's the sad thing. It never proved itself true.
No. It's all nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
If it actually helped anyone in any way, which I don't see how that's possible, but whatever. But I never believed that. And the people that kept helping him and stuff, I'm like, this is dumb. Like, nobody's going to help you. Just kill the man and move on. He's put you through. Yeah. That's the first thing I'm going to do. As soon as I get out of my bear trap, I'm going to go find the guy who put me in that bear trap, and I'm going to kill him.
I'm going to hobble over with my missing leg.
That's right. I'm going to beat you with my severed foot. Yeah, so I'm not really on board with pretty much any part of the story and all that sort of stuff. So, and even we're going to segue over eventually into the upcoming Spiral. And I honestly can't tell if I'm interested or not, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. First we are going to do our pitches. Before then, however, do we have keywords?
Oh, we do. And by the way, very disappointed in all of you. We asked for reviews this week, and we didn't get any. I offered free stickers, and no one could take the time to log into their iPhone and go over to the podcast and leave a review. So no stickers will be given out, but we will hopefully have an upcoming giveaway soon. I got a couple of ideas. I'm looking at some things. You guys know what to expect from us on the giveaways. We go big. We'll be doing that again, so take out your handy-dandy movie retakes Post-it note or get the back of the sticker you won from trivia and jot this down. Your keyword for today is chains. CHAINS, because clearly they made a deal with a chain company for the production of the Saw movies. There were so many featured. Or they use the same chains over and over again. I don't know. But your keyword is chains.
Very good. All right. We have this takes us over to the pitches portion of the podcast.
Pitch, please.
That's right. It's very, very exciting because what we do here is my brother and I write our own original pitches for a Saw movie that normally we say that we'd like to see. I don't know that I would want to see any more Saws, even the ones I've written. But the idea here is that we are going to either write a reboot ourselves or a sequel, maybe a prequel, a reimagining of sorts. But it's all our concept, and we cast it. We choose the director. And then, each of us have our own. And it's not really a competition, but always like to get some feedback of who you might like to, which movie you'd like to see. I can never remember who went
I think
first.
you were first last time.
Ooh, boy.
You and Vanessa, so I'm up this time.
Gotta bring up the rear.
this is what sets our podcast apart from the others. Every time I pitch it to somebody, I'm like, hey, we do a movie podcast, but wait a minute. It's not like all the others, because we got this part at the end that's ours that no one else is doing. Here's our take, and that's where we're at. So here I go with my Saw retake. Again, I'm not right. Maybe we can get group therapy after all this, because I'm going to need help. I tried to leave out some things, but I purposely wrote in some things. Here we go. My title is Saw Escape. It's directed by Brian Duffield, who directed The Babysitter. And I don't think he directed Babysitter 2, but I really like The Babysitter. That was on Netflix, horror film, really fun. And directed Spontaneous, the movie I can't shut up about this week that I finally saw on Hulu that I really, really enjoyed. He brings a nice, fresh, lighter take to horror and makes it fun. And I think that's what Saw needs. It needs a new take. It needs something to maybe bring in a new generation of fans. It certainly needs to be a little lighter, I think, than where Saw was going. It's just too much. I want to make it a little lighter. So this is my guy, Brian Duffy.
I like that idea.
Stars. Yeah, thank you. My stars. Again, I'm going to Spontaneous because I really like this movie and I really like this actress. From 13 Reasons Why and Spontaneous, Katherine Langford. She played the lead in Spontaneous. Cute little blonde girl. Looks like she's in her mid-20s. She'll be playing the character of Catherine Keyes. Then I'm going to bring in Andrew Garfield and Dev Patel as two developers. And then I got a couple others I'll reveal as we go throughout. But we're going to keep the cast and the budget on this one a little smaller, just like they've done with the Saw franchise so far. Not 10. I don't think we can get away with 10 on what I'm going to pitch to you here. We're probably looking at 50, 60 mil easy. But we're going to make 200 easy at the box office, so we're fine.
Oh, good.
Here we go. We focus in on a young woman, Catherine, played by Katherine Langford, in her bedroom, the walls decked out with horror movie posters and collectibles. She's ending a video call with a friend on her computer and is clearly excited about a new event happening in her favorite VR game. She closes the video chat and puts on her VR headset. Similar to Ready Player One, we're taken into the virtual world to see what she sees in the headset. The load screen graphic for the game comes up. Escape! Exclamation point. The game begins with Catherine seeing her own hands out in front of her. She's in an abandoned building in a small room, chained to the floor. Chains. At first, she is in full control of the scenario when we hear her say, okay, what's the challenge to this one? There's got to be a key around here. There's always a key. She turns her head left and right, looking around the room for clues. Just about that time, a monitor mounted to the wall turns on. The rest of the room is dark, and so her eyes immediately focus on the screen. She realizes then that she isn't the only one in the room. There are several other players in the room with her. Something is different this time, though. Catherine is really impressed by the visual updates to the game and comments on how real it looks. A face and voice come up on the screen, but it's not what she's seen in the past. This time, it's a weird Max Headroom-looking video of a character with a painted face, dark black hair, a red bow tie, and wait, she screams. They did it. They really brought Jigsaw into the game. You can hear the excitement and disbelief in her voice. As Jigsaw begins to speak, something very weird happens. Catherine is no longer in control. She can't move her head or hands. They are, in fact, moving on their own, but laser focused on the screen at the moment. Jigsaw goes into one of his typical scripts, warning how everyone in the room had not valued their lives and had committed some horrible act towards their fellow man, blah, 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 but then ends with this, but this time, it is real. Catherine is thrown a little bit, but says, interesting twist. Let's see how it plays out. The game commences and the people in the room begin to play the game. Clearly designed to kill all but one of them, Catherine still can't control her character and begins to think that something is broken when she hears another voice. The voice isn't coming from one of the other players, but from her character. Catherine speaks, but realizes the other person can't hear her. It's then that Catherine realizes this isn't the game, but a live feed of a real events unfolding before her via VR. She watches in horror as her character plays the game and wins, but all while watching the horrible demise of other players in the game. Mutilated, bloody, real. Oh my God, it's real, she says as she removes her headset and throws up right there in the middle of her room. She cleans herself off and she turns to her phone to confirm her suspicions. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, several horror blogs she follows all confirm. Everyone playing the game saw the same thing, and several of the characters in the game have been identified. It was all real, and everyone saw real live footage of people being killed. We cut to a Silicon Valley office building and right into the middle of an important meeting. The meeting is at the home office of the creators of the Escape VR game, Todd Grinke, played by Andrew Garfield, and William Easterly, played by Dev Patel. They, along with a room full of suits, are arguing over how this happened and, more importantly, why. The stock price of the company is dropping by the minute, and everyone is in full panic mode. The decision has been made to shut the game down until further notice. We fast forward to the end of the day. Grinke and Easterly head out of the building, look at each other, simply shake their heads, then get into their cars and drive off. The next morning, the FBI rolls in. You got to have the FBI in these, right? Or the cops, at least. The FBI rolls into Gideon Games to question Grinke and Easterly, but they are nowhere to be found. No one from the office has heard from them since the day before. The FBI agents are just about to leave the office to check in on the two creators at their homes when they hear a collective gasp from different areas of the lobby and building. One of the young ladies at the front counter, with a horrible look on her face, turns her monitor to reveal a social post announcing the, quote, next chapter in the Escape series will be available later that day. The post is accompanied by a photo of the game creators, Grinke and Easterly, chained to a wall.
Oh, no.
That evening, Grinke and Easterly wake up to find themselves chained to that very wall, with their heads held in place and arms held out in front of them on metal plates. They've been out for hours, and although the rest of the world knows their situation, they are just piecing things together. They look up on the wall to see a monitor and two digital clocks. One reads 60 minutes, and the other is quickly increasing in number. It is already in the millions and bouncing up by tens of thousands every few seconds. The screen turns on and Jigsaw appears again. He reveals that Grinke and Easterly will be his next contestants and that they have profited from his pain and suffering. His work was meant to rehab people and was never meant for the personal gain of a few game creators. They would pay for their actions, but had the chance to live if they could learn from their actions. In typical Jigsaw fashion, they are presented with the opportunity to escape, if only they will give up the very thing that allowed them to bring that game to millions of players, their eyes and fingers. They can, however, be allowed their freedom if they can figure out who it is that put them in this scenario. As with the game they created, they can escape if they can just solve the puzzle. Other screens light up around Jigsaw, showing posts to the official Escape Reddit and other social platforms. The clock begins to count down from 60 minutes and two giant machines lower from the ceiling above them. It's clear that these machines will eventually puncture their eyes and cut off their outstretched fingers by the time that clock hits zero. I know I hated even coming up with this, but I had to.
Awful.
The FBI has less than an hour to try and figure out where the two game creators are being held. That is simply no way they can do it. In fact, the only hope for Grinke and Easterly is the people watching. That other number on the wall that keeps going up is the number of people watching them. Millions are out there and can help, but where to start? Posts are flooding in, and the two chained to a wall can only offer suggestions, while the rest of the world uses whatever means necessary to track down info. Grinke and Easterly, terrified and angry, begin to pitch out ideas and theories, but are granted no additional information. Who had they wronged? Whose pain had they profited from? They each rattled off pretty lengthy lists of people they had wronged, but the machine kept moving closer and closer. They admitted to horrible acts, shady business deals, and more that helped them get their game to market and put money in their pockets, but nothing they said stopped the clock. The machines moved closer and were already beginning to pierce their fingers and were getting dangerously close to their eyes. With 5 minutes to go, Grinke mentioned Jigsaw's early apprentices and the clock briefly blinked yellow, but the timer didn't stop. Was this a hint that they were on the right track? They pushed that line of thinking, but even as self-proclaimed Jigsaw experts, could not get past the two names, Amanda Young and Mark Hoffman. Each had already lost parts of their fingers to the machine, and the pain was taking over. They threw out every detail they could think of, and with less than a minute to go, Easterly yelled, "Michael! Michael Young!" The clock stopped, and the two were dropped from the wall. As they raised himself off the ground, they continued discussing Michael Young. And flashbacks, of course, a big part of these films, and voiceover revealed that Michael and his mother Claire, played by Sandra Bullock, had come to visit their office years before, begging them to change or stop producing the escape game. Michael's sister Amanda was one of Jigsaw's victims and early apprentices before she was found dead. They were just a couple of the many such people that had approached Gideon Games about stopping production on the game. They were only provided a few minutes to talk with the game creators and were basically told to F off by the company's lawyers. After that meeting, Michael had focused all he had on revenge and did everything he could to fight that company. He eventually decided to use Jigsaw's tactics and hack the game to play out his own scenarios. Greaky and Easterly shared everything they could remember with about Michael Young and his mother with the FBI while being loaded into ambulances. Each had lost significant portions of their fingers and had already suffered some pretty severe trauma to their eyes before the clock stopped. The FBI, thinking that was all they needed, raided the Young home only to find nobody there. Clearly it had been a struggle in the home and nobody had been there for days. During their investigation of the home, one of the FBI agents brought up his phone to find another social post about an upcoming in-game event for Escape titled Chapter 2, accompanied by a photo of Michael and Clarice Young, but they were shown bound and gagged. Clearly, the game wasn't over. Roll credits. And also, wait a minute, I just got this just in. Sandra Bullock has declined the role due to a scheduling conflict, and the role of Claire will now be played by Robin Wright. Sorry, that was lengthy. I got into the setup at the beginning of the VR part, and I was like, oh, I really can see this. So I started just writing as fast as I could, all that I could imagine from this. And I think I came up with something pretty good. Towards the end, there's some things that need some work there. I don't know exactly how it plays out with the mom. I didn't include her much, but I think that's an important part.
No, I think it's good. It's a good length. Yeah, I like my eyes and fingers. I don't want those to be taken. Some of my favorite features.
I can't watch anything with eyes. To me, that's the worst.
Yeah.
And so even writing that, I was like, oh, like looking away at the keyboard.
Yeah, they had that in that. I forget which one that was, but the peeping Tom or whatever had to lose his eyes.
Those two like little mini axe things or mini. Gross.
No good. All right. I know it's just disgusting writing these things. I think there's a little similarity here. I'm not. I think we're both sort of recognizing kind of what they're doing in Spiral. Maybe that it's in the world of Saw, but I guess they've all been doing that at some point. It's just basically passing the torch to somebody else that's kind of picking up the Jigsaw name in a way or whatever.
They desperately need to.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's gonna probably happen with all these. All right. Mine is called The Sawmill. I am the director. I
already like it.
Is Jennifer Kent, who did The Babadook and The Nightingale. Casting, I've chosen Cillian Murphy as Dennis Carter. His wife will be Natasha O'Keefe as Lainey Carter. Joseph Fiennes plays Detective Jeff Smalls. Just like you, there's always got to be cops in these. That seems to be a theme. Yep. Issa Rae plays the other detective, Samantha Tapp. You'll recognize that last name. And Kevin Bacon is the assistant. Okay. We open on a pair of muffled screams, red liquid swirling into the drain of a small concrete room. A man and woman are tied to nearby slabs, both stripped to their underwear. The man is being waterboarded, flailing and fighting for air. The buzz of a reciprocating saw kicks to life, and a masked villain cackles as they lower the blade to the woman's leg. She howls in terror, and as the man is allowed a brief gasp of air, he shouts, "Strawberry shortcake!" "Say it again," says a hooded man holding a running hose by the victim's face. The victim is weeping. "Strawberry shortcake," he whimpers. "Stop." "Damn you," says the woman, her masked captor letting her free from her restraints. "You didn't last." She looks to the other captor who removes his hood. 22 minutes, he says. 22 minutes, Michael, screams the woman. "I'm sorry, Jamie," says Michael, the red dye from his hair streaking down his neck and chest. Jamie is up from her table, her legs intact. "You ruined our honeymoon." Dennis Carter steps outside a barn smoking a cigarette while he watches the young couple get dressed, the woman putting her piercings back into various parts of her face. Their argument carries into the car as they drive away down a rural road, presumably back to civilization. Carter dismisses his assistant. "That's it for the weekend," says Carter. "Nothing booked until next week." The assistant, an older man with little to say, hangs up his pig mask for another day and drives off. John Kramer, a.k.a. Jigsaw, has been dead over 15 years, but his legacy lives on in Sawmill, a voluntary horror house where victims pay to be mock-tortured. The facility operates in the middle of nowhere where screams can't be heard, but business is down. While Carter's weekends were once busy torturing guests, visitors mostly came for the Jigsaw Museum, where deadly devices from Kramer and his legacy test makers are housed in rows of glass rooms, each made to resemble the crime scene where they were used. Even that has had waning interest in recent years. Carter steps inside the museum and an adjoining structure to the barn. He passes the gift shop and heads through a blackened curtain. Inside are familiar sights from Jigsaw tests through the ages: the reverse bear trap, the furnace, the razor box, the shotgun collar. He passes them all to a workshop where a woman is tinkering with a menacing-looking device. It's his wife, Lainey Carter. She's upset about the business, but mostly angry that he won't let her participate in the fake tortures, claiming the assistant costs money they don't have. Dennis says he won't risk a repeat of what happened years before, and it's then that police come knocking on the museum door. Veteran Detective Jeff Smalls and rookie Samantha Tapp have come in from the city. There's a copycat Jigsaw killer, and they want Dennis to help them track down the suspect by looking over the devices and crime scenes. As a Jigsaw expert, and through his own personal interest, Carter helps the detectives with the case. Niece to David Tapp, the detective sliced by Jigsaw and killed by Zepp Hindle years before, Samantha is personally vested in squashing anyone looking to bring back the Jigsaw name, and she doesn't care for people like Dennis Carter, who seem to celebrate the killer's work. Jeff Smalls, on the other hand, is fascinated by the philosophy of fear and its power to invigorate the living. With Carter's help, the investigation initially leads to Charles Vince, a Jigsaw superfan and frequent visitor to the Sawmill Museum. He has a small museum of devices himself, and the detectives take him to the station for questioning. While there, another Jigsaw death is discovered. She's a black market Jigsaw collectibles dealer. Carter knows her work, and Vince admits he's bought stuff from her before. Carter says there are other Jigsaw museums out there like his, many boasting possession of genuine devices and items owned and used by the killer. The only way they could obtain such showpieces are through black market deals. Smalls and Tapp wonder if a deal had gone wrong. They go to question one of the museums, which runs its own torture house, to find the caretakers are dead. More Jigsaw victims. Tapp and Smalls begin to wonder if Carter may be offing the competition and attempting to renew public interest in Jigsaw to boost his own business. Carter, meanwhile, recognizes the trap once again, an original creation by his wife, Lainey. Smalls ventures to a second competitor, the last one for hundreds of miles in the area, and Tapp lets Carter off the case to surveil his movements. Carter confronts his wife, thinking she may be behind the killings, and she says someone broke in and stole her work. Smalls runs into a dead end at the competitor's place, but decides to stay for a torture session, excited by the discovery of this new world. While there, the killer strikes, and Smalls' fake torture turns very real. When Smalls and the museum caretakers are reported murdered, Tapp and the Carters recognize that someone is targeting Jigsaw enthusiasts, and Tapp wants to put the Carters into hiding. They forget about the assistant torturist, however, until he calls the police station. He tells them the Jigsaw copycat has him hostage. Tapp and the Carters rush to the sawmill, realizing too late they've entered a trap. They're knocked out with gas and waken Carter's museum inside respective glass rooms and locked into their own test devices. A race against time, the Carters manage to escape their own devices and instruct Tapp how to free herself. They think they've beaten the killer's game, only to be knocked out by gas once again. Awakened in a new room, Tapp and the Carters are in a competitive test, one which allows only one survivor. On a TV screen, we hear Jigsaw's voice and the assistant, gagged with a gun to his head. He says, "Jigsaw isn't a man to be revered, and people like the Carters need to burn with the rest of the torture sickos." Carter realizes this new device is not encased in glass. Using his cigarette lighter, he starts a fire which sets off the museum sprinklers, allowing Tapp to slip her restraints. The assistant runs from hiding. He wasn't gagged, and they realize the video was a ruse. The Carter's assistant is the Jigsaw killer. He says his son got deep into faux torture and Jigsaw nonsense years before, and when he mysteriously disappeared, he had to find out what happened. He suspected a torture house was at fault, but none of the owners would confess. Lainey admits she killed the man's son. It was an accident in the early days of the sawmill when one of the sessions went too far. They covered up the death, knowing it would ruin their lives and the business. She agrees to go to jail and shut down the sawmill, and the killer agrees to let them go. But the device won't turn off. Tap and the new Jigsaw can't break or slow it, and in a desperate moment, the killer throws himself into the gears of the machine. The Carters are freed from the device, but Tap restrains them both and puts them in the back of her police car. They drive from the sawmill, headed back to civilization. The end.
Ooh, nice. I dig it.
Not a crazy ending, but I guess everybody gets their comeuppance in some way.
It's interesting we both went to, there's a post First Saw series movies where everyone knows about Jigsaw. It's become part of pop culture even.
Right.
And has things like this museum, and I like the married couple, or the honeymoon.
Yeah.
Is they went for a torture session. That seems like something that would really exist.
Yeah,
honestly.
you know somebody would. Yeah, I think that one's all right. I mean, it's got the basic, detective tales in there. I tried to tie it in with her being related to Danny Glover back in the day. But other than that, it's kind of a standalone thing in that world. But yeah, just mostly acknowledging that Jigsaw was a part of that world and a killer that everybody knows about.
That's one of those nice touches. Like, they don't have to do a flashback and show Danny Glover. Just, if you're a true fan of the series, you'll get it instantly. No one needs to explain it to you. I like those kind of touches in films. It's big in, like, Marvel and DC, where they'll mention a name, and the real comic book fans are like, oh, I know that is going to be such and such down the road.
Right.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, both, I think, feasible entries into the Saw franchise. But, the bar is pretty low.
You know what? I didn't think about this before just now, but I'm sure there are quite a few people that are big fans of the show, and I bet there's or the movies, and I bet there are quite a few of these people's own stories out there already. It might be interesting
stories.
to see what else is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. I bet there is. There's probably a whole book series of people writing these. All right, but we do have a professional version coming up from Chris Rock. This is going to be Spiral, formerly Spiral from the Book of Saw. So now it's just Spiral.
This package just came in.
Get everybody out of here. Play me.
Hello, Detective Banks. Do you know where your officers are?
Jigsaw?
Wait, I thought the Jigsaw killer was dead.
He is.
Find him. They're hours, not days.
How can I catch this guy? If there's nobody on the force, I can bust!
You can't do this alone.
Whoever did this has another motive. Something personal.
When was the last time you saw your father?
Jigsaw copycat.
This is gonna go sideways fast.
I'm a nut spin like a spiral.
All available units, officer down.
That was just a diversion to get us out of the precinct!
Spirals.
I need everyone on this case! He could be anywhere. He could be anyone. We're gonna tear this city apart.
I'm a nut spin like a spiral.
Hello, Detective Banks. When was the last time you saw your father?
synopsis here. A criminal mastermind unleashes a twisted form of justice in Spiral, the terrifying new chapter from the Book of Saw. Working in the shadow of his father, an esteemed police veteran, Samuel L. Jackson, brash detective Ezekiel Zeke Banks, Chris Rock, and his rookie partner, Max Minghella, take charge of a grisly investigation into murders that are eerily reminiscent of the city's gruesome past. Unwittingly trapped, I can't say it, in a deepening mystery, Zeke finds himself at the center of the killer's morbid game.
Is it just me? Did you see the trailer to this?
Yeah.
Is it just me, or is it weird that Sam Jackson is Chris Rock's dad?
It is weird.
Like,
I wanted to ask you that
right?
too. I don't know their ages.
I don't see him as an old dude.
No. Yeah, Sam doesn't seem to be aging.
No, he looks good.
Chris, you could tell, but we've known him for a long time. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You could see he's getting a little older. But yeah, thinking of him as his dad is tough. I don't know.
Yeah, they're going to have to sell me on that when the film comes out. They're going to have to, I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to have to sell me on that, or I'm going to be thinking about it the whole time.
I think even if it is feasible, I think it probably would have been nicer if they were brothers or something like that. I would have been more comfortable with. But whatever. I like both of them. And so let's...
Sam Jackson is 72. Sorry to derail it. I had to know.
No, that's fine.
Sam Jackson is 72.
So how old's Chris?
And Chris Rock is 56.
56.
So 16 years difference.
Not a huge...
It's very feasible, though.
I guess, yeah. All right. So besides Chris and Sam, we get Morgan David Jones, Ali Johnson, Dan Petronijevic. Sorry, Dan.
Good job. You nailed it.
No. Sure, it's way off. Edie Inksetter, Layla Lee? Sure. Max Minghella, and Christopher Ty. This is, as we mentioned earlier, directed by Darren Lynn Bozeman, who directed Saw 2, 3, and 4. And our writers are Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger, who wrote on Jigsaw. Chris Rock also has an as-yet unofficial story by credit, so I think he kind of came up with the concept. This is a real movie that will be coming out May 14th, 2021, although every release date these days is just a number that has no meaning whatsoever, so it'll be out when it comes out.
Is this one of those that they say in theaters only? I didn't pay attention to that. I got to look it up. Or are we? I know we're not getting it as part of that HBO deal. It's separate from that.
That's a great question. I did not look it up. I don't know if they're still committing to theaters, but I kind of doubt it.
Either way, I'll probably wait until I can watch it at home, but still.
So, overall, the Saw movies, like I said, I probably would only recommend the first one. And even then, I'm not going to tell everybody they need to rush out and see this. So if you haven't seen these, it's okay.
Well, you brought up the question earlier and said, I don't know if I'm interested in seeing this. Mm-hmm. I think, well, you'll eventually watch it, right? At some point, just to see what it's all about?
It depends on the reviews. I'm very much, if reviews are consistently low for stuff these days, I've got too many other things to watch, and I'm fine with accepting their opinion. There's some movies that I still want to see for visuals or something,
right.
You know, and I don't expect much from the movie. But a movie like this, I need it to be, like I said earlier, I need it to be more than gore. I need there to be a good story in this.
I'm going to finish watching the movies. I'm so close. I only have 1.5 to watch to finish everything up. Hold on, I'm going to sneeze. So that I can be prepared for this. And I'm going to watch it. I'm hopeful that even though they have the same director and writers, that the tone of the movie is a little bit different and that they don't fall back into the trap of, oh, we're going to bring back the real Jigsaw once again, you know, Tobin or whatever. It doesn't need it. I think it needs to be its own launching point for a new generation of Saw films. I think if you can continue to make these, it'd be interesting to see what the budget on this was during versus what it makes at the box office. Was this a high budget film? If you got Rock and Sam Jackson, it has to be a minimum $30 million movie, I would think.
Probably more than that.
To get those guys in it, plus production costs. But I'm going to watch it, and I'll let you know what I think when the time comes. I'm probably not going to go to the theater, but we'll hold out for as soon as it's available for a digital release. And I am hopeful that we can get something out of it. Because wouldn't it be interesting if we got all those other films that were basically one long story that did pretty darn well at the box office, only to get some really good horror movies out of it in the long run with some bigger name actors and some better storytelling.
I agree. I think it would be a great move to take it that direction, where kind of like ours, where Jigsaw did exist once upon a time. We're aware of it. This will probably be a copycat thing, a story we've seen sort of before. And yeah, it could probably, and I think, I'm pretty sure they're already greenlit for another one.
I saw somebody mention that. Yeah.
So they have anticipations here that this is going to do all right. And I'm sure it will. I think with the names alone, they'll get a decent turnout. It's really just about how many people can go to the theaters at this point if they're releasing it at the theaters. But I've been on the fence. At first, I was kind of like, yeah, that's a thing that needs a reboot and something new. And then I've gone back and I've watched the trailer, I think like 3 times or so. And in my trailer analysis, I'm like, Chris Rock's just shouting. Like, it doesn't seem to be any acting there. Everything's just like that. He knows this line is supposed to be intense, so he's delivering it that way. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm picking it apart a bit too much, but that's what I do. And, I don't know. I'm not real thrilled about it. So, again, I think it's going to come down to early reviews. What are people saying? If it's high enough, and they say the story is, worth a watch, I'll check it out.
I watched most of this most recent season of Fargo. I haven't finished it yet, with Chris Rock in the lead. And honestly, this is like Chris Rock 2.0 now, where everything isn't about him just making jokes and being funny. He's trying to be a real actor, and he's pretty good in Fargo. I liked him.
Yeah.
Didn't love him. Like, he definitely is one-dimensional in it, but I didn't finish the series, to be fair. Maybe there's some growth there. I'm hoping that he does a good job, because if you're acting across from Sam Jackson, freaking Sam Jackson's amazing, and he can shout all the time and get away with it. It's still acting.
You're right.
Chris Rock can do it.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Sam somehow, I'm not going to say he has a huge depth, but he doesn't.
He has a commanding presence.
Yeah, he pulls it off, and I like him.
Yeah.
He's likable.
I'll watch anything with him.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, ideally, whatever world we'll live in May, it should be out May 14th of this year. But before we get to see Spiral, we've got some trivia. There's quite a few films as we've reviewed here, so there's a decent amount of trivia as well. So sit back and learn some fun things.
I love this part, too. Always learn some really cool stuff. You want me to kick it off?
Sure.
All right, starting with the first Saw film. We'll break them out by film. The film's pre-production was only 5 days. Holy crap. It was shot and cut at the same time in 18 days. All of the bathroom scenes were shot in 6 days. The actors had absolutely no rehearsals. The rehearsal takes were actual footage for the film. Wow.
Yeah. That's a fast one. Director James Wan built the Billy doll for the film.
He built it himself. Wow.
The
film screenplay was written in 2001 as a calling card for director James Wan and Lee Whannell trying to break into Hollywood. They shot a low-budget short based on a scene in the film, and this proved successful enough to attract the attention of Evolution Entertainment. They immediately formed a horror genre arm called Twisted Pictures and gave Wan and Whannell a small budget. Yeah, that's awesome.
So Twisted Pictures began with Saw, which makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
No chains. It's just barbed wire, though. The detectives track down a fire alarm to a warehouse on Stygian Street. Stygian is the name of James Wan's first film, which also starred Lee Whannell.
Oh, that's cool. The identity of the Jigsaw killer is revealed early in the film during a flashback when Zepp, Michael Emerson, says he's a very interesting person. On John's hospital bedside table in front of him is a diagram of the reverse bear trap.
He's just doodling that.
Yeah.
There. That seems a bit foolish.
Nobody was going to question it at the time.
Yeah, I guess not. Don't worry, he's just got head problems. After Amanda stabs her cellmate, the guts she searches through were actually pig uteruses. Growed.
Oddly specific.
Yeah.
Saw 2. 5 alternate endings were shot. Now I want to see all of them.
What are they? Where directions are you taking this? 5 different times? It took 4 days for 4 people to replace all of the syringe tips with fiber tips for the needle pit scene. There's a lot of needles.
That's one of the most gruesome. Like
awful.
that's that. What is it? Death by 1,000 cuts. Like she should have had death by 1,000 syringe needles. This film originally came from a script by the director Darren Lynn Bousman, which was called The Desperate. After trying for years to get it made, but being told repeatedly that it was too violent, a company finally wanted to do it because they suspected Saw, which was becoming a hit at Sundance, might be a huge success, and they wanted to capitalize on that success. Some producers even described Bousman's script as too Saw-ish. Just before it was about to close the deal to make the film, Saw opened huge at the box office, and the next day he received a call, and the producers asked if he could change it around to Saw 2. Lee Winnell, who wrote the first Saw film, was then brought on to help Bousman with creating his original idea into a proper sequel to Saw. So the old shoehorn it in like they've been doing with the Cloverfield universe.
Yeah, we've seen that before, and I guess that happens more often than we think.
Probably.
Take an existing idea and quickly adapt it to whatever's successful. The razor box trap containing the syringe actually has a padlock with a key in it. You can see it out of focus at the top of the screen when Addison puts her hands into the trap. The filmmakers deliberately included this as a way of showing that Jigsaw knew the characters would rush in without checking the trap for a simple solution.
Oh, ouch. Actually, one of the videos I saw online but I didn't watch because I didn't have time was called how to beat every one of the traps from Saw.
Yeah.
And I want to watch that just to see what their theories were. Did you?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Various items from the house can be seen in Jigsaw's lair when Detective Matthews is questioning him, hinting that the video feed is old. According to the director, the rope and the paddle that Amanda picked up were both in the lair, but very hard to spot. The obvious item is the picture with the X marks the spot on it, prominently seen behind Jigsaw in many scenes. Interesting.
The key hidden inside the needle pit would open the steel door in the room, although most of the audience believe it would lead to the exit. The director, Boseman, confirmed in the commentary that it would reveal 2 more syringes containing the antidote.
Interesting. Saw 3. The producers asked the producers of Scary Movie 4 if they could use their bathroom set for this film, as it was the exact replica of the sets used in Saw and Saw 2. That movie that spoofed the movie almost got used in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So that was our big question 1 there. Donnie Wahlberg went to great lengths to tell people that he would not be appearing in the film. Who's asking? Even to the extent of issuing a press release. This was done in order to make his appearance in Saw 3 a surprise. Okay.
Well, I remember these being insanely popular at the time. I think he probably was getting questioned about it quite a bit.
I don't know.
And this was... social media was starting to get pretty big. Or was pretty big at the time. So I could see him getting hit up a lot online about it, too.
Yeah.
The pig carcasses were made out of foam, rubber, and latex. However, the pig props were filled with real, live, disinfected maggots. You can disinfect maggots?
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Tobin Bell said that this was his favorite trap in the entire series. Ugh.
Grody. 1,000 special posters were made and sold for $20 each in support of Saw 3 and the American Red Cross. A winning combination. Tobin Bell donated 2 vials of his own blood to be put into the red ink vat. All 1,000 posters were then printed with the red ink and later sold. However, the first print was put up for auction. It was also signed by the entire cast and crew. All proceeds from both sales went to the American Red Cross.
I can't believe the American Red Cross agreed to that. That seems very weird.
Hey, whatever. If it
Right?
helps them out.
For charity. Well,
Yeah.
I got some ideas for future fundraising now. The script was being constantly added to during production. Lee Winnell remained on set throughout filming so he could keep working on it. One climactic scene between Shawnee Smith and Bahar Sumek was scribbled down on napkins only 5 minutes before it was shot. Oh my God.
Moving on to Saw 4, as part of a running gag in the Saw series, the filming crew always hid what they called a fart machine in one of the sets and made it go off in a particular serious scene to see how long the actors could keep a straight face. In Saw 4, Lyric Bent was the victim. He actually managed to remain in character for a couple seconds before bursting into laughter.
So right in the middle of a scene, you get a little over on the side.
They had a good time.
That's awesome. Yeah, you got to lighten that up or else they're going to need therapy too.
Yeah, really.
Saw 4. This is the first Saw film written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, who would also write the next 3 entries in the series. When interviewed about the job, they learned that there was a Saw Bible with rules they should have followed. However, as they had never received it, they had planned out an entire series of Saw sequels from their own ideas. Fortunately, their pitch was well received by the studio and they got the job.
Yeah, as you had mentioned that there's got to be a big list of rules and timelines and everything to understand and all that.
Crazy.
Yeah. Betsy Russell was in the same outfit during the hospital scene as she is in the interrogation scene. The camera slowly pans to the mirror to transition into the interrogation scene with Agent Strom. The sets were right next door to each other, and Betsy literally ran to the interrogation set for the transition to work.
I did like those transitions in that one. I noticed that was better editing for sure than in the first 3. That was cool. Like where he pulls up a shirt and it transitions to a next scene, or when she walks out the door. I thought that was pretty cool. Saw 5. Real animal blood was used for the final trap. The director said they wouldn't have used it if they knew how bad it was going to smell. Why would you need to?
Yeah, it's unnecessary. Scott Patterson was apprehensive about sticking his head in a sealed box filled with water. Really? The trap was tested beforehand and didn't go well, which only added to his concern. He ultimately stepped up and did the scene himself without resorting to a stuntman.
God.
I'm cool. Can I pay for the special effects so I don't have to stick my head in the water box?
That's the scene, because I don't know if you watched that part where he gave himself a tracheotomy?
Oh, the tracheotomy, yeah.
Oh, man, that was smart thinking, man. Although the odds of him actually nailing that perfectly pretty slim.
Yeah, they've used that in a lot of movies, and my guess is it doesn't actually work.
No, I would die, and then I would just have stabbed myself, and yeah.
Yeah.
The house Agent Strom runs through while chasing Hoffman at the film's climax is actually the nerve gas house from Saw 2. It had been renovated and refurbished by Hoffman. My God.
Wonderful. And now a beautiful family lives there. In Saw 6, VH1's reality show Scream Queens winner Tanedra Howard won a role for this film. She plays Simone.
Oh, that's interesting. A week before filming began, director Kevin Grutert was informed that the film would be post-converted to 3D. Grutert was upset at this decision as he hadn't planned or storyboarded such a move. The idea was dropped for this installment due to the time constraints, but resurrected for the next film in the franchise.
In William Easton's office, there are several crystal landmark statues. One of them is the CN Tower in Toronto, Ontario. Every Saw film, except for the first one, has been filmed in Toronto.
Oh, interesting.
Toronto has a ton of filming here.
Yeah. Vancouver as well. Vancouver's big for television.
Mm-hmm. Atlanta's got a ton of stuff now, too.
Yeah, all the Marvel films filmed there. Or did. There's a bunch of changes to that going on now. But continuing Saw 6. Prior to the film's release, Costas Mandylor didn't even know if his character lived or died in the ending due to shooting multiple endings. One of those alternative endings included a revenge trap set up by Special Agent Strom for Hoffman to die in. I wish he had.
Oh, man. Moving on to Saw 7, in a Massachusetts branch of Showcase Cinemas, the film was accidentally screened instead of the 3D animated film Megamind, traumatizing its young audience.
Oh, no!
Whoops.
Oh, my God.
Bit of a fight club there.
Oh, yeah, exactly. A little cigarette burn.
The cigarette burn.
Totally. This film finally sees Cary Elwes returning to the franchise as his character Dr. Gordon from the first film. The producers had frequently approached Elwes about reprising his role, but a lawsuit over his salary for Saw, the original film, caused him to pass on the opportunity multiple times. After the lawsuit was finally settled out of court, Elwes insisted that he would only return for the final entry in the series, which... Does he get paid every time they make another movie?
He should, yeah. Should be a penalty.
Yeah.
Originally intended by the writers to be 2 films, Saw the Final Chapter, Parts 1 and 2, with Cary Elwes' return being the big finale of Part 1, and then Part 2 would tie everything up. After Saw 6 didn't do well at the box office, Lionsgate decided that the 2 parts would be turned into a single film. The producers and writers stated that lost elements from the original 2-part script might be used in future sequels.
Interesting. I wonder if by virtue of doing it that way, they ended up with some good setups in there that'll pay off still in the others. So I mean, it seems like it would. This is the only film series to have its first 7 films released in consecutive years from 2004 to 2010. That record was originally held by the Police Academy series, whose first 6 films were released consecutively from 84 to 89. I was close about the number of films, but that year after year release has just got to be crazy for the studio.
Yeah. Well,
nuts.
And this is the only movies that can do that. The Police Academy and Saw series. I think we know exactly how good those are all going to be.
Turns out Saw is actually a reboot of Police Academy. We just didn't, or never done it the whole time.
It's all in the same world. That's the crossover we need. The Police Academy police investigating the Saw murders.
Oh my God, I want it so bad. Proctor!
Gabby West won her role in this film through Scream Queens, just like Tanita Howard did in Saw 6. So we've answered 2 of the other big questions.
So is Scream Queen still on? Are we going to see more of them here in the in Spiral?
I do not know.
The only Saw film to have a budget over $11 million, Saw 3D had a budget of about $17 million due to the complexity of shooting in 3D.
The original intention with the opening scene in the shop window was that it would end with the reveal that Jigsaw was watching the action unfold in the crowd. The timeline would mean that he was still alive at this point. Standing beside him would have been his accomplice, Dr. Gordon.
And then on to Jigsaw, the not-so-final film in the franchise. Previously called Saw Legacy, the title changed to Jigsaw in 2017, making it the first film to have Tobin Bell's character's name displayed in the title.
Finally made it. As Halloran arrives at the farm, Hunt calls him. The caller ID on the phone shows a 647 area code, which is one of the area codes for Toronto. Additionally, these are all real phone numbers, not the traditional 555 style phone numbers seen in various TV series and films.
Interesting.
Pity on whoever has that number.
Right? You know somebody's requested it. They want it.
Yeah.
And the final bit of trivia, the person who stabs Detective Halloran with a needle toward the end is never revealed in the film. Thus, the accomplice is unknown. It could be assumed that it was Logan. However, it is possible that there is another unknown accomplice.
I know who it is. Sandra Bullock.
Candlestick. Yes. Who, by the way, has backed out. I just got this news in.
Oh, man. All right. Well, you made it. All of us made it. So many saws, so many details, and we do appreciate you listening to another episode of Movie Retakes. Join us on Wednesdays over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Movie Retakes for live episodes and trivia. Good times as always. Thank you again, everybody. This is Matt signing off. As always, support a writer, read a book.
And this is Big Brother Chris, leave a damned review, Sully, signing off with a big old Nerds Unite.
Most people are so ungrateful to be alive. But not you. Not anymore. Game over.